IndyCar is the goal for me right now, but we have a scholarship going towards Super Formula if we win Formula Regional America, so that is the goal this year. I would love to go to Japan.
Yeah. Good strong field here, as you can see, and I'm sure a couple of your mates from past racing are amongst them, including a teammate or two.
Yeah, I got my teammate on IGY6, Christopher Parrish. Hopefully, I'm hoping he does well and can make some positions up in the start, and yeah.
Well, Hayden will be in action later this weekend, well, today actually, in the FR race, so we'll be watching him in action in the Formula Regional, the big boys of the Formula 3 FR Regional Championship. But we are now turning our time to F4, United States F4, and a full grid of newcomers, some of them returning, some of them for the first time. This, though, the first race, as away they go. And yellow flags waving at one of the stalls there. Hopefully that wasn't for a stalled car, but everybody away. And it is the 19 of Michael Costello, who looks so good in qualifying, who leads them away, but he's already lost the spot at the start. And everybody jostling for position, including going on the grass and getting a little bit of air there. And we've got an accident with 3-4 cars off track, some with damage, some not, some trying to get back on track. And drama indeed. And Hayden, that's not what you want at the start of a race.
No, it's not. You want to make it through the first lap as clean as possible so you can just continue to chase down the guy in front of you.
Well, I was at the drivers' meeting last night, as you were, and I was listening to Scott Goodyear praise these F4 guys for being as sensible as they were, you know, in the lead up to this. And I'm not saying that they weren't sensible, but this is not what you want. The whole idea in F4 is to finish the races, but of course they are battling for their own championship and their own position. You've got to get your elbows out. It's a double-edged sword. You want to listen to the race director, you want to be clean, you want to race hard, but you also need to make a name for yourself in a field that is over 30 cars. And so if you're going to make a name, you've got to get your elbows out, and you've got to be somewhat aggressive or somebody else will overtake you.
Yeah.
Whoa. All sorts of dust and grass flying up there, but plenty of position changes, and that's the 19. That's Costello, who led the race early on, and he's, look, got damage to the front end plate there of the front wing. How much did that affect you, do you think?
Not really too bad in the F4 car. The aero is sort of mild on these Formula 4 cars, but sometimes if you bend it the right way, it'll help you.
Yeah, good point. So Titus Sherlock it is who picks it up, but quickly and very smoothly. Daniel Cará, excuse me, from Woodlands, Texas, and the Cará Origins Motorsport car takes up the lead, and already we've got a big change around at the front of this one. A good start to our feature race 1 of 3 for the weekend. Formula 4 for the first time in action in 2023. Hayden Bowlsbey and Jonathan Green bringing you the action here on the live stream, wherever you're tuning in from. And Sherlock doing a good job of investigating the front of the field at the moment. Titus Sherlock, Cará in second place, Carl Bennett in third, Frankie Mossman in fourth, Logan Adams in fifth, then the first of the Canadians, Patrick Woods-Toth, and Michael Costello, in fact, dropped down to, what, 7th place after that shuffle at the front. Then it's the Australian Jesse Lacey just behind him in 8th position. So from high above, Hayden, got plenty of a good view of how they're spreading out. Do you get to a point in a race, in an F4 race, where you can settle down and start to sort of rethink where you are, or is it just frenetic the whole time and just you're going full on?
Generally, when you're in a pack, you're focused on playing cat and mouse.
Yeah.
When you're kind of behind a pack and you're trying to gain up, you really got to be mindful of ways to improve your lap time, and you got to really take care of the tires and, you know, just work your way up. And the toe at this track in an F4 car is actually pretty huge, unlike in a F3 car, but see how he's breaking the draft.
And that's how they're weaving. Just explain that. When you say the toe you're getting, you get a good toe, but of course you want to avoid that if you're the number 10. If you're the guy that leading, you don't want anybody in your toe, but you create it by the fact that you get into a group, and therefore slipstreaming comes into play, and that can suck you into the car in front of you and effectively give you a slingshot pass as a helpful passing maneuver, yeah?
Yeah, man, in F4, you could be 3 car lengths back at this track starting at the straightaway. The toe is so massive in these cars. I mean, in the FR car, you could be a car length and a half behind someone, and the toe is very, very minimal. You really got to get your exits on the corners really down, and that's how you make passes.
And we're looking at the man from Quebec in Canada, Patrick Woods-Toth in the Crosslink Kiwi Motorsport team. And of course, Crosslink Kiwi Motorsport, the most successful team in American F4. There's the letters on the side of another one. That's Cole Kleck from San Antonio in Texas, looking to make a name for himself. Had some good Texans over the last few years. Growing up here in New Orleans, I'm guessing you knew this track well. I mean, there's a kart circuit across the way here on the same complex. Have you been here a few times?
Yeah, I started driving here in 2015 in the rental cart over there in the rental cart center, and then Jay Howard was affiliated with the track at the time, and I started karting with him and did some national stuff, and then moved into his F4 program, and it's just kind of gone from there.
Has it grown? You can see the kart track in the distance there. As a complex, has it kind of grown? I know we had IndyCar here in 15, but it still has now started to sort of find its way, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the kart track here was pretty big at one time, and I actually think SCUSA didn't come here for Winter Nats this last year, so it was pretty big at one time, and there are still some races here, but probably about 3 or 4 years ago, it was pretty crowded.
So let's take a look at what happened. And Hayden, I'm going to turn to your wise eye on this, because we had several cars involved in that first incident right at the start. So we'll see the start here. And Costello gets away well in the 19, right at the middle of your shot in the blue and black. It's the cars behind him that we're going to kind of focus on, because as we dive into this next right-hander, you start to see people jostling for position. Carl Bennett is one of them. He takes the lead, but it's just coming up now into the next left-hander that we start to see shenanigans. One car on the grass, another one jumped up there, loses his back wing. It's hard to say if there's anybody at fault there. That was just a racing incident, right?
Yeah, I mean, you had some cars that went into the turn 1 runoff. It's pretty bumpy right there, so you got to wait for the car to settle down before you can really start doing any changes with the pedals and the wheels. And it seemed like a couple people checked up, and it just happened from there. There's really nothing you could have done. It was kind of a chain reaction.
Well, Nico Ambiado of Davenport, Florida in the 51 for the Scuderia Buell was involved. He was the one that lost the rear wing. And the ERA car on the inside there, the blue and yellow, looks as though he's slowed down, because through goes the number 12 of Garrett Dettman of the Fishers Industry Momentum Motorsports team. And down the main straight they come again. 12 minutes to go. They don't get a lot of time. Does the car change as the as the race goes on in a Formula 4 race, if there's not too many cautions?
If it's a green lap race the entire way through, you can expect the tires to sort of give a little bit, but it's probably no more than half a second.
Yeah.
It's not to the degree of a F3 car, for example.
So Cará, Bennett, Mossman, Sherlock drops to 4th, having led early on. Woods-Toth from Canada is 5th. Adams, Lacey, Kleck. I'm going to get his name right eventually. Boyiadzis. I'll get it right. Durst, Hodgson, Berg. Alex Berg in 12th position. Dettman, Scott, Higgins. Wisniewski in 16th position. DeFabis in 17th. Juanio, which is a Hawaiian name, but he's from Florida, 18th position. Greenemeier, Hannah Greenemeier is in 19th, and Martinez in 20th position at the moment. As we take a look at the number 17, and that is Tyke Durst of Ganella Racing. Several successful teams in this championship over the years, but Crosslink Kiwi Motorsport the most. Oh boy, they're pushing it. How far sideways can you get these things? Can you grab them before they lose it? He was close.
I've done a full 360 and kept going.
Well, do they give you a lot of, somebody else has just done a 360, but do they give you enough time to react? I mean, some cars suddenly just go. Other cars give you a little bit of control before you actually lose it. Safety car out.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the the severity of like how sideways you get and kind of how much load is on the car. Sometimes if the car is really loaded up, it can just give, and then you have no time to react. Or sometimes you go through a corner and it'll just start putting up a slide, and which you could, you know, pull a drift and recover.
Good crowd here on the balcony, and that's one of the best spots just by our commentary position, actually, on the last corner here at NOLA to watch from. So a lot of the friends, family, sponsors, you name it, are all up there. Some of the spotters and engineers as well. But we're under caution here for another incident that's happened, and it's all change at the front because the race was led by Carl Bennett, but now Frankie Mossman has picked up the lead. And so it's all happening here, but we're under caution yet again. And just trying to see David Cará, Frankie Mossman, Jesse Lacey, that's the top three. Carl Bennett dropping to 4th place. Well, while we're under caution, we'll take a short break. We'll be back from NOLA in a few minutes' time.
The Mission Foods Atlanta Speed Tour returns to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta March 24th through the 26th, featuring the Trans Am Series presented by Pirelli, the Sports Car Vintage Racing Association International GT. Saturday, take part in the Haggerty Cars and Caffeine Car Show with Parade Labs. You do not want to miss the Mission Foods Atlanta Speed Tour March 24th through the 26th. Advanced ticket discounts and camping is available. For tickets, simply go to speedtour.net.
Welcome back to NOLA, and as you can see, we're under caution here, and Daniel Cará is the man leading us around. We've got 9 minutes to go. Jonathan Green and Hayden Bowlsbey, who'll be in action this afternoon in the Formula Regional. He did 3 years in this level of Formula 4 racing, and yeah, pretty impressed with Cará so far. You were just talking to me in the break. Very little experience. Yeah,
I mean, I was talking to the guy who's his mechanic and the guy who's like running his team he's running with. He's had a minimal amount of testing, and he's actually doing pretty good considering in a field of 30 cars. He's in 6th place. I mean, that's really good. That takes a lot of talent. He's a good driver.
No question about it. Well, currently in 6th place, but he's been leading up until one point. Mossman now in the number 6, leading the field from Bennett. Sherlock in 3rd, having led also. And yeah, there's been quite a few changes in this race already from the get-go. We had that big incident at turn 2 right at the very start, and then everything sort of settled down for a couple of laps, and then as you can see, we're under caution. I'm not 100% sure why we're under caution again in terms of who's caused it, but the clock ticks down, and this must be a tough time for a driver because there's actually more than you think. It looks as though you're just sort of sitting there waiting, but you're not actually. There's a lot of sort of things that are going on. You've got to check that the tires are, basically you're waiting and readying yourself for the restart, because if you just sit there and kind of, you know, look out the window type thing, well, not look out the window, you know what I mean, you can easily get beaten up at the start of the restart of the race.
Yeah, if you're not paying attention on the restart, you'll get freight trained down the straight, and that's
exactly.
Not good. So that's a NASCAR term.
Exactly, but that's a much better expression. But as you can see, they're all sort of jostling for position in terms of making sure that they keep their position. And what are the rules here? You can weave, you can keep the mechanical grip in the tires, keep them warm, but you certainly can't accelerate really and use the brakes to heat the brakes up really, can you? I mean, or can you?
So here, when I was driving F4, I would, if it was like a bad incident, I wouldn't really even bother keeping my tires warm the entire time, because I'd try and preserve them.
Good point. Yeah.
The hotter they are, the stickier they are, the more it's gonna wear on the track. So
there's our incident. So
turn
it's
6.
right at the turn 6, yeah. And so it's a car stuck in the gravel, so that's why it's taking time to get him out.
Yep. So, but yeah. So I'd probably start warming my tires back up a lap before we go green.
Right.
And
you could see that by the fact that the caution's either being cleared up or you're being told by your engineer, right?
Yeah, and typically what I did is I would use the brakes, like you were saying, to, you know, get the tires warm, because heat typically goes from the bottom to up.
Yep.
So it'll expand out the tires. Scrubbing across the track only does the surface, but you want the core of the tire hot. So,
but think, man.
like you said, you can't give too much of a gap. You kind of have to keep the same pace. I know when I was in F4, I'd give a little bit of gap, maybe about a corner, just so I get a run in and kind of get the tires a little hot. But
and how is the transition? First of all, well, I don't know if you were doing karts, but what about the transition from whatever you were doing into Formula 4? Because for most people, it's their first experience of slicks and wings.
I'll tell you, I drove X30, the IME X30 class in karts. It feels faster than an F4 car.
Yeah.
And it's only because the ground is going underneath you and you can see it. These cars feel slow.
Slower. But what about the fact that you've got the wings and the downforce?
I mean, it helps a little bit in the corners for sure. I mean, this car has a lot more mechanical grip thanks to suspension than a go-kart. But the downside is it's heavier and you can't throw it in like you would on a go-kart. You could dive bomb in a corner in a go-kart. Sometimes you'll go over the top of somebody, sometimes you won't. And these cars, half the time or most of the time, you go over the top of somebody if you really hit them hard.
Yeah,
so
and hurt you, and potentially hurt and break your car.
Yeah.
What about the gap between going up from F4, which you've just done, into FR? How big a change is that?
Well, I'll tell you, in F4, it's a very tame car. It's a really good entry-level car, and the best way I can explain the FR car is the first time I laid down on the pedal, the turbo spooled up, and then it's like you can hear an audible thump, and then you were like warp speed.
Wow, I bet that was scary.
Exhilarating.
Do you get used to it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. Yeah, I was talking to Callum Hedge, who I've just been with for the last 6 weeks in New Zealand, doing the Toyota Racing Series. Very similar cars, obviously, but different chassis, different engine. And he's saying, you know, that turbo lag is something to get used to. It really is. It thumps in there, and once it hits.
Yeah. I've never driven the Titus, but I think it has a tad smaller engine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 1.6.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like actually might be a little worse. I don't know what the size of the turbo, but if you don't have the same amount of exhaust pressure coming out, bigger engine gives more exhaust pressure. So.
Yep, Ligier chassis here, Tata chassis in New Zealand, Toyota engine here, Honda engine here in the US of A. And we're really appreciating Honda's involvement in the FIA coverage. Hence, we've got the Civic out front as our safety car, and there he is. Yeah. But and of course, all of these cars, in fact, use the Honda Civic engine. In the F4, it's the non-turbo version, and in the FR, it is the same Civic engine but with the turbo. So a little bit more power, a lot more power, I should say. But neat little cars and a great way to learn your racing chops.
Yeah, and it looks like they got the incident cleaned up a little bit, so we should go back green soon for some exciting racing.
And I would have said this is pretty much hell-bent for leather, because the amount of time we've got left on the board, and with the lights off on the safety car as they are, you've just got to give it full beans now. If you're going to make a position up, if you're going to go for some points or a podium, it's got to be at this restart, because we're down to what will be just a couple of laps, really. And who's your money on?
Ooh.
Mossman's got the advantage, but it isn't always the advantage to be at the front, is it, at the restart?
I think Cará or Sherlock really have a good chance. Being P1 right now is kind of the place you don't want to be.
Yeah. Well, here we go then. We're about to find out at the restart of this. Just 2 minutes to go, so we are just going to have a sprint finish here in the first race of the year. And as you quite rightly point out, a bit of a sitting duck. Mossman there as Bennett dives through on the inside. Sherlock's right behind, the 27 of Woods-Toth from Canada. And a good clean restart. Some going wide, some on the race line. But that was a great start from Bennett. Carl Bennett out front, but he hasn't got this all done yet. Through comes the 27 of Woods-Toth. On the inside is the 31 of Sherlock. And you made a good call on that, because Titus Sherlock really doing a good job of hanging in there on the outside. Where do you make an overtake here at NOLA?
Turn one's kind of a sketchy area to make a pass. In the turn, if you do it in the braking zone, you're pretty safe. Turns 3 and 4 are some good last-minute passing. And
probably at the end of the S's, I'm thinking to 15.
13, you can
13,
really make
yeah.
some passes. Yeah,
That's right. Well, that's coming up now. We're heading into the S's, which I believe is flat out in these cars. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, the first initial bend left is a slight lift, and then it's full throttle there on out. Avoid the bumps, and you're good to go.
Good to go. Coming into that turn 13, this the obvious overtake, but everybody line astern this time out. Nobody overtaking this time. We're looking at the 10 of Cará, who we thought might nip it here, but we're going to have one more lap, I believe. Yeah, we're just going to get in and across the start finish before the clock ticks down to 0. So we should get the white flag out this time round, and Bennett will lead them across the line. And there is that white flag. So last lap here in our F4 race. Hayden Bowlsbey with me, Jonathan Green, and in the mirrors, Bennett looks to see how close. He shouldn't have done that because he'll scare the heck out of himself because they're right with him. The 27 of Woods-Toth in second place. Oh, drama! Round goes one of the Howard development cars, and it's the number 6 of Mossman, who had been leading at the restart, and he is out. But it wasn't his fault, I don't think.
Yeah, man, that's unfortunate. He was looking really good.
Yep, that's racing, as they say. Back to the action, though. Bennett still leading, but only just. Sherlock looking for every which way to get round. Time running out. This is the last lap, and he cuts the nose off nicely. Woods-Toth, though, there in second place. Sherlock in third.
It's going to come down to the wire.
It really is.
Lap.
I don't think I'd want to be leading right now.
No, the huge toe coming up, especially through these S's. There's no air wash in these cars.
Here we go then. Bennett trying to hang on through the S's for the last time. He's flat out through here. Woods-Toth trying to make a move, and if he doesn't make it right, the man behind him, the number 31 of Sherlock, will make his move. And now we're coming down to the vital corners. Into 13 they come. Good recovery from Bennett. He's got away at least by half a car length in as we come into the complex. He may have this. He's got to get the run to the line, though. Into the last corner they come.
Oh, he's going to have a
Four
toe.
abreast. It's going to be a drag race to the checkered flag, but Bennett's got this. Here he comes. And he does take the checkered flag, and just holding off the 27 of Woods-Toth. 31 is Sherlock across the line, but it is the number 9 of Carl Bennett who wins the race here for the Yorba Linda, California. The man for Ganella Racing, fragrance sponsored, number 9, and that's going to smell pretty good. But he played well there. That last lap was never good, a never easy restart, was it? And he took the advantage right from the get-go into turn 1 and then held the rest of them off.
Yeah, he did his job. He went out there and executed, and he got the win. So good on him.
Well, I got a chance. Tell everybody where to look for you, because you're going to be on this live feed in just a couple of hours. Tell us your number, your sponsors, and how to root for you.
Well, I'm driving the number 3 IGY6 Motorsports Formula Regional car. So, and I believe I'm starting P7, but the grid isn't finalized yet. So we'll see about that. And
what about social? Can we find you?
Yeah, you can get me on Instagram or Facebook.